9, 10. I'm Dale from the British Bushcraft School. Just going to go through a quick knife review with you. Now, everybody's always talking which knife do you want, which is the best, and to be honest, it's all personal preference. You know, there's pros and cons to each. Even the Leatherman can get you through a sticky situation, you know, carving feather sticks, you know, fire by friction kits, whatever. You've also got the pliers and everything. The only issue with the Leatherman is, although the blade locks out, if I can actually grab the right blade, put that together, there we are, blade locks out, not very strong on the hinge, you know, and if you're putting a lot of carving pressure, I have heard people say these can actually break backwards, you know, which gives rise to a chance of injury. So, you know, nothing wrong. I have people come on courses, they bring these and they do prefer to use them, until of course we loan them a Mora Clipper. Great knife. Love this knife, everybody uses them. They come in two types of blades, the carbon and the stainless steel. Now their stainless steel has got an awful lot of carbon in it, meaning that it is actually really, really good at holding an edge. It sharpens really well, and the only difference I notice between the carbon steel and the stainless steel is that the carbon just rusts more. This stainless is, well, you can see, this has been lent to students, used by students, resharpened, and it still looks nice and clean, and it does hold a pretty good edge. You know, you can get it up to shaving standard. So I do like the Mora Clipper. Nice grip, ergonomic grip, so you know which way around you're holding it, because there's nothing worse in the dark than grabbing a knife, thinking you've got it around the right way, and then you put your thumb on what you think is the back, and you're putting it on the cutting edge. But with the shaped grip like this, it's different on both sides. You can grab it, you always know which way you're holding it. Now in terms of tangs, a tang is the bit that goes into the handle, okay? And that's the sort of security of the knife, how much pressure you're putting through it, all comes from the tangs. The tang drives the pressure through into the blade. Now I know the tangs on Mora Clippers come roughly to about here. It's a while since I've dissected one and had a look, but you know, which is admirable really. These are all sort of moulded on, these grips, and they do give a fairly good grip. I've only ever known one Mora Clipper break, and it didn't break at the tang, it actually broke about here. A friend of mine was battening and it fractured. So they're a good knife, probably about 10, 15 pounds depending where you get them from. And I've also started using these Hultafors knives. Now I do know, on Be Fair Tomorrow, they do make these clippers in a multitude of colours, even bright orange now, which is great because we do get students lose them quite a lot because the bright orange are easy to find. But these Hultafors knives, blade tends to be a bit thicker if we compare it to Mora. Mora's quite thin, but Hultafors is much thicker, making it stronger. It's not as deep though, which can be a bit of a problem, especially when you're carving and you reinforce carving with your thumb. To have a wider blade, you just feel like you've got more control, so it's nicer. Also when you're choking up, you know, choking up to use your knife just to the point for gouging out various depressions and things. If it's narrow, you can feel a bit, you know, a bit risky because your fingers are nearer the edge. You know, I've got used to it, I don't mind it so much, but I do like these Hultafors knives. I haven't dissected one, don't know how far the tang comes back, but I do know they're about £5. So we're using them on our courses more and more, and also people feel really secure because of this huge finger guard there, which is really nice. Now I know people who use nothing but these. They're very good bushcrafters, some of the top in the business, and they just use, you know, what I'd call cheap disposable knives, but had the same knife for years. People say, oh, you want a knife that you'll keep for the rest of your life, but the truth is you start sharpening them and they will wear away. No knife is really for life if you use it on a regular basis. You know, they get thinner and thinner. Now move on to more sort of Sami style knives. Lots of people like these. I made this one myself, forged it out, ground it up, but you can buy these off the internet. They're really nice. They don't have a particularly strong tang though. It goes into what we call a stick tang, which is quite thin and goes through the handle. So although they're great to carve with, I've never, no, in fact I have known one break. I have known one break here at the tang. It was a fairly cheap and cheerful one I made. But you know, they have their place, and I like them a lot. I really like using this. I get an awful lot of stuff done with this, but whenever I'm batting through stuff, I'm always thinking, hope it's not going to break right there. Very sharp knives, very nice big bevel as well. Nice big flat Scandi grind, so when you're sharpening it's very easy to find the flat of the bevel and the sharpening stone, whereas if we compare it to something like Mora Clipper, it's got quite a thin, narrow bevel, so it's very difficult to find where it's flat on the sharpening stone. So the other thing is, no finger guard, no ergonomics, so you can't really feel which way around it is, you know. But Sami knives, Scandinavian style knives, they're all kind of different types, shapes, sizes, so there's always going to be something out there to suit you. I made this as a nice lightweight knife to carry with me. Any heavyweight work I do with an axe, so you know, combined with an axe, this is the perfect knife. If you want to step up a little bit, I've got a much thicker knife. This is my real general use knife, and we're starting to look into what we call a full tang. Now, the only thing I don't like about a full tang knife is that you've got the metal exposed all the way around, which can be quite cold on your hands, and I don't have the best circulation in my hands, so I tend to suffer from that. It also makes the knife quite heavy. So I made this, I made a semi-tang type design, so it goes full tang into about a quarter of the way and giving you lots of strength. You can see it there. Okay, I did a bit of patterning on the top, and I should have cleaned this up before filming this video, but we're just doing this one on the spot. From that point on, it goes into a stick tang in the handle almost to the end, so you do have lots of strength, and I think this is the perfect compromise. So I called it sort of a semi-full tang. Absolutely love this knife, use it for everything. Got the ergonomic grip, it's nice and wide, which is brilliant for when you're carving with your thumb. Also what I do, when we use the fire steel, we're obviously scraping away from us, so that means this edge here has to remain sharp, but this edge here, where we push with the thumb when we're carving, well, you can round that off, and that's exactly what I've done with this. It's really comfortable to carve with. Love this knife, nice and wide, so you can choke up on it, absolutely brilliant. The only step up from that, if you want to call it a step up, is the old full tang knife, where we've got the tang all the way around. And like I said, not my favourite, because you know it's quite weighty, you always feel it on your belt, which in some ways is a good thing, because you always know it's there. But you know, like I said, the other thing, if you get really cold hands, you're grabbing the metal all the time, especially in very, very cold environments, that can be a bit of a problem. Your bare skin on metal, especially if it's been out in the open, hanging about, and it's got freezing cold. But for me, it's just the weight aspect, really. I like the lightweight kit, I like to keep it simple. So, if I had my choice, one knife only, I'd go with this. Okay, that's why I made it, and that's why I use it a lot of the time, but you know, I also use this in combination with an axe. So that's my talk on knives.
Hi, I'm Luke Collier. I'm helping out with just a quick review and a look at machetes and why you might want to use machetes over an axe or something like that. I have a strong liking towards machetes and parangs and so forth, because I used to work in places like Belize, Central America, and Indonesia and Borneo, where that would be their favoured tools. So I'm not going to try and sort of fight against axes in particular or anything like that. I'm just going to show you just a couple of different types of machetes, and you can just see why I like them. What I've got here is a standard cutlass type machete, as they're called, quite often used in South America, Central America. This particular one, the sheath is from Belize, but the actual machete is a Ralph Martindale, and believe it or not, it's a British-made tool. Can't get this one online, but you can get similar ones. But it's classically the shape of a cutlass style machete. This up here would be the meat, the thickness of it, and the down here where I've got the tape around it, classically that's where people will hold on to do finer work. And what you have with machetes, they tend to be quite thin and very, very flexible. And the logic being, with having the meat and the weight of the blade at this end, you don't have to do much work to try and get yourself through anything. These type of cutlass type machetes are generally used to get yourself through secondary forest, where it's quite dense and you need to chop your way through. So you're using long sweeping motions and the weight of the blade to get through something. I'll just do a couple of chops in a moment. And what makes that different to this smaller one type here, which is a parang, typically now Southeast Asian, is the fact that you can see straight away that the blade thickness is quite immense, but the blade length is short. This wouldn't be as useful to chopping your way through secondary forests and trying to get through lots of undergrowth. This is used where you have primary forest where you can walk through. They then want to chop down something in particular and use it. So there's lots of whittling and lots of finer work with one of these. And again, the weight of the blade is used. You flick it almost like a badminton racket when you use it, and let the weight of the blade do the work for you. That's classically those ones. I've also got one here which is owned by our main man Ryan. And it's in a kickery design. I already managed to sort of like nip my finger when I was taking this apart. And this is, as he says here, the Hawk's blade. And Ryan, our main man, has managed to sort of bring back the edges here and make it quite sharp all the way round. Personally, I don't like having a double-edged blade on your machete, because there's not many moves you're doing this way round to use it. However, it does come in handy. As I say, this is a kickery sort of style, but they're fancy. So they generally have the weight curving round, again you can just flick the blade and the weight of the blade will do the work getting through something. The only thing with this one, this is a Condor Perang. The only thing I don't like about Condors is that their handles are absolutely horrible. They don't feel right. So at some stage I will change this, but the blade itself is lovely, it's beautiful. You can use metal files and you can work these back. They come with a convex edge on them. You just work that back and you can get a sort of like almost like a Scandi grind onto it. And you'll see straight away when I'm chopping through something here how it just generally works. Using the weight of the blade, I'm going to go in and it acts almost like an axe. And there we go. There's that one. Nice and dead and dry piece of work. The machete here, you'll be taking longer strikes with it now, and this is why I can tap through that, but you can hear almost straight away the difference in it. So with this, I'd need to do harder strikes, longer swinger ones, using the meat of the blade to get through. And this is why this one's not so good for chopping down trees, but it's very good for getting your way through undergrowth. Very, very good. And now, I've not used this, but let's just see how it works. That's actually quite nice. It's very sharp. I won't go any more. I don't want to ruin that edge. There we go. Why would I use a machete over an axe? Personally, that's probably because I've used them a lot more in those the fields where they are used. I like them versatile. You can use them all over the place. Whereas I personally find axes, you're limited to the type of work you can do, and you have to really train yourself hard to do fine finesse work. Whereas these are just like bigger extensions to your bushcraft knife, but you can still go through quite heavy industrial size wood, and it'll help you out. The only problem is they are large and they're very obvious in English type forests. There we go. 3 types of machetes. You have it.
So you can't do a review on knives without reviewing the first knives we have used as a species, and that's rocks. Here we have flint. Everybody knows flint. It's great, nice to work. Fractures in what we call conchoidal fractures, so you get these little sort of circular fractures coming off. Gives nice sharp edges, also serrated edges, good for carving and good for sawing. I made this Neolithic hand axe myself. Good for butchering game, getting in the joints and cutting the flesh. It's also got a nice little geode in the middle. North American equivalent, this is Obsidian. Very nice, beautiful, glassy shine. Now these are the type of rocks we get around here. This is Worcestershire, and this used to be an old glacial lake around these parts. So all the rocks are rounded like this. So I've been breaking these apart to make tools out of them. Although it's not as easy to use as flint or obsidian, it's certainly by no means impossible. And I've got some nice rough edges there, and I've managed to carve hand drill kits and bow drill kits using these kind of rocks. You just have to find big round ones, smash them against each other, and it's more luck than skill pulling out the bits you need. The skill is in actually spotting the bit that you want from all the fractures that are broken apart. You also get rocks like this with nice long edges, good for sawing. You know, you get some rough parts on here, acts like a very basic saw blade. And then you get rocks like this, which are quite rough, and you can use these to sand things down. You know, sort of sanded down the top of this drill for the hand drill kit here, which I made out of burdock. You're certainly not going to be able to carve spoons like this with rocks like this, but it's certainly possible to make a wide range of survival tools just using rocks and stones. Even with rocks and stones as poor quality as this, you can get by. So I've got an article coming out in Bushcraft and Survival Skills magazine taking you through the whole process of using rocks like this to make a fire by friction kit. I talk about floating briefly in the article, but also introduce a new way of attaching a short bit of fire by friction material to a nice long straight green drill without using a lashing.